There was a time when Marcus Rashford was the golden boy of Manchester United. He was the future of English football, touted as one of the best next things in the Premier League. Fast forward to 2021, and the story surrounding Rashford has changed dramatically. His performances on the pitch were under intense scrutiny, and fans couldn't help but ask, what happened to the player who once looked like he had it all? In fact, I remember a conversation with my friend during a United match in 2021. We were watching Rashford stumble through another lackluster performance, losing possession time and again. And we couldn't help but wonder, is this the same guy they compared to Mbappe? We were both shocked, laughing but also confused. How could a player who once seemed so full of potential drop off so hard? I decided to dig a little deeper into his stats from that season, and trust me, the numbers didn't lie. Let me break it down. The dream start. Let's go back to 2016. Marcus Rashford was 18 years old and he announced himself to the world in spectacular fashion. When he scored 2 goals on his debut in the Europa League against Midtjylland, it wasn't just a flash in the pan, it was a signal of things to come. His blistering pace, his eye for goal, and his ability to terrorize defenders made him one of the most exciting young talents in Europe. Over the next few years, he continued to develop at a rapid pace. By 2020, he was regularly starting for Manchester United with some incredible performances under his belt. In fact, in the 2019-2020 season, Rashford racked up 14 goals and 6 assists in the Premier League alone, establishing himself as one of the most promising wingers in the game. But then, something happened. Something changed. The drop. When the 2020-2021 season kicked off, Rashford was expected to be one of United's key players. Instead, his form was a shadow of what it once was. What was once the best part of his game, his dribbling and directness, began to evaporate. By the end of that season, Rashford's stats were a painful read. His dribbling success rate plummeted to 56%, one of the lowest for any winger in the league. To put that into perspective, players like Jack Grealish and Mohamed Salah were performing at around 80%. The difference was glaring. But the real kicker? Rashford wasn't just failing to make a difference, he was actively hindering his team. He was losing possession far too often, averaging 3.2 turnovers per game, the kind of numbers you simply don't expect from a top-level winger. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon for notifications so you don't miss any football fun. Now, let's get into it. When you consider that wingers like Sadio Mane and Son Heung-min were consistently making an impact in the same position, Rashford's decline was hard to ignore. The stats that tell the story. It's all in the numbers. According to Who Scored, Rashford finished the 2020-2021 season with just 2.6 key passes per 90 minutes. That's not terrible, but for a player of his reputation, it was far from what you would expect.
And he's put that away brilliantly. That'll settle it. Manchester United.
He averaged 0.29 goals per 90 minutes, down significantly from the previous seasons, but perhaps the most damning stat? Rashford finished the season with just 7 goals and 5 assists in 37 Premier League appearances. For a player expected to be United's top attacking threat, that's not just underwhelming, it's a disaster. To put it bluntly, this was not the player fans had hoped would take them back to the top. What went wrong? So what happened? How did Rashford fall from being a young star to becoming one of the worst wingers in the Premier League? There's no simple answer, but let's break it down into a few key points. Number 1, inconsistent work rate. The first issue was his work rate. Rashford wasn't putting in the same effort off the ball that he had in his earlier years. He seemed disjointed in United's attacking system, often failing to track back or make intelligent runs. His positioning on the field started to lack the sharpness that had once made him so dangerous. Mental fatigue. Another factor was the mental toll. Rashford's off-field activism, including his successful campaign for free school meals for children, was widely celebrated, but it could have taken a toll on his focus. At a time when Manchester United needed a leader on the pitch, Rashford's mind seemed elsewhere. This type of pressure can sometimes overwhelm players, especially young stars, with a lot to carry on their shoulders. Number 3, injury problems. Injuries also played a role in his poor form. Rashford was playing through persistent injuries that clearly affected his performance. From a shoulder issue that required surgery to a problematic ankle injury, it's not surprising that Rashford was unable to perform at his best while dealing with these physical setbacks. Number 4. Tactical fit. Rashford's talents had always been suited to direct counter-attacking football. Under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, United played a lot with pace and directness, which allowed Rashford to use his speed to exploit space. But with the arrival of a more structured, possession-based style under Ralf Rangnick, Rashford's limitations became more evident. He struggled to adapt, and the tactical change exposed his weaknesses. Despite the hype around him, by the middle of 2021, Rashford was no longer a regular starter for United. When United were struggling, Rashford's inconsistency stood out like a sore thumb. Even with the pressure mounting, he was still being called upon to produce, but the results never came. This was the player who, just a couple of seasons earlier, had been compared to Mbappe, but by the end of 2021, he had become the focal point for criticism. He was ranked among the worst wingers in the league based on his production and performances. And to make matters worse, his struggles continued in the Euro 2020 tournament with England, and despite making it to the final, Rashford's minutes were limited, and his performance in the shootout against Italy became infamous. He missed his penalty, and the backlash was swift and cruel, with Rashford facing racial abuse and intense scrutiny from fans. So, what's your take on Marcus Rashford? Was he always overrated, or is he simply the victim of unrealistic expectations placed on him too early? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you never miss another deep dive into football's most intriguing stories. Until next time, stay safe, keep loving the beautiful game, and I'll catch you in the next one.